a bunch of outlets who put out stories a couple of days ago basically saying that there were too many purchased plays on the Nicki Minaj and 6ix9ine song, so it wasn't actually a number one. Then you fast forward a few days, and the song actually is number one.
Yeah.
But we already had a video that was like a clip from our weekly podcast, the No Jumper Show, that was titled, I think, like how Nicki Minaj and 6ix9ine faked the number one. At the time, that seemed like an accurate title, and now the song actually went number one, even though, I mean, myself and probably a lot of other people would argue that this is sort of a duplicitous meaning of the term number one, since I'm pretty sure that the only reason why it's number one is just because the Barbs were willing to buy as many merch combos as possible.
Well, they spent money to purchase 14 million YouTube views. Imagine how much that would cost. Imagine the amount of money it would take to boost a video by 14 million views. Like 100, 200, $500,000, like maybe even $1 million, if you really think about it. You know, and the whole thing of, you know, bundling merch or, you know, live concert sales into an album and somehow manipulating the number that way, I don't know. It just seems like it totally defeats the purpose of having a number one song, right? Because you could have the number one merch, or you could have the number one show, but to somehow combine it all and to say you have the number one song because people buy your merch, I just think that's, you know, I mean, I understand you set out the rules and people are going to manipulate the rules to their best ability to try to make themselves look better, but I just feel like the rules are flawed.
And they keep changing the rules because, like, for instance, that DJ Khaled album, there was some sort of energy drink tie-in, and they basically ruled that after that, you weren't able to do that because, you know, the energy drink has nothing to do with the actual album. So then when you look at the 6ix9ine Nicki thing, it's like they have, if you look at his website, it's like an unbelievable amount of merch from, I think, cassette singles, records, t-shirts, hoodies, shorts, hats, masks, everything. And it all relates back to the content. So technically it counts. But I mean, if you really want to look at like what his true genius was here, I think it was that he partnered up with Nicki Minaj, who has probably the most rabid, willing to spend money fan base that you could think of in this category. Like they you know, everybody knows that the Barbs are this legendary entity on the internet. And, you know, he wasn't able to go number one on his first song just by himself, but then you team up with the Barbs. And the thing is that those purchases are worth like 1 million streams or many hundreds of thousands of streams, et cetera, when you just purchase one copy.
Well, remember the first song, Billboard said that there was just a massive amount of bots. It was like 4 times as many bots on that song than usual. So, I mean, look, man, a guy that's willing to tell on everyone around him, even his friends, has no problem getting fake views, you know, paying for fake views or trying to get around a system to once again make him look better. I mean, this is all par for the course. I mean, this is his thing.
And it's weird. I don't feel like anybody is really looking at him going number one as a sign that his career is necessarily in a good place. It feels like him getting number one in this song still feels like it's part of this overall story of people just losing interest in him, which is not normally how it works.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who's celebrating that number one outside of him and Nicki.
Yeah.
I mean, and her fans are probably celebrating, but I don't know. You know, and he didn't get any support from radio or playlists or anything else like that. He had to try to use other means, I guess, to try to get there. Like I said, man, I'm not really feeling the whole thing. I've said it plenty of times in my interviews. I think what he did was foul. I think he tried to repaint it by saying he was a victim, but clearly he was the ringleader and he was the one that was getting people to do all this shit. And when suddenly he was facing time himself, he went and told on everybody to get out of doing time himself. That's why he told on everyone, not because of the reasons he gave. Oh, they were stealing my money and fucking my girl or whatever, you know. No, I was facing time, so I told on everybody. This was his mentality. So,
my heart is a little bit warmed seeing the hip hop worlds come together to sort of collectively blacklist him from stuff like playlists and a lot. Like you would think that doing a big song with Nicki Minaj that objectively has her rapping very well and everything, you know, the beat sounds like a catchy popular song or whatever, but to still see so many people just really going out of their way to not support it sort of instills it in my heart a little bit more that like, okay, the rap world can come together to collectively enact change, even if it's about something like this.
Yeah, I mean, I've known Akon for like 15 years. Like when me and Akon run into each other, it's like, oh, yo, like we'll go to the side and we'll catch up for like, you know, 15, 20 minutes and talk. Like I really respect the guy. But when I saw the video of him doing Locked Up Part 2 with Tekashi, I was just like, yo, it can't be for the money because he's already wealthy. He's been wealthy. I mean, massive songs, a lot of businesses. He signed a ton of artists in Africa and everything else like that. He's wealthy. So I don't know why he's doing it. I really don't.
I really wonder if we're ever going to hear that song. Because it almost sounded like, you know, to put out a snippet like that and then to immediately kind of go quiet on it and then do the song with Nicki and everything, it seems kind of out of the ordinary for him. Normally throughout his career, we've seen him like hype one song up for a long period of time and then drop the song. So for him to do that little snippet thing with Akon, then do the Nicki thing, I feel like the momentum has already kind of been lost for the Locked Up Part 2. I feel like that was almost a skit in the sense that we're not going to get an actual song out of it, and that them doing the song together on the iPhone was the whole thing.
Maybe, or it might be on the album.
Yeah.
Who knows? I don't know, man. I don't talk to the guy. Me and Akon haven't talked in a little bit. You know, probably about a year and a half or so.
Would you describe it as disappointment that he did that, or how would you characterize it?
Well, Akon's always been like a street guy. Like his first song was Locked Up, which was his experiences being locked up from running like a stolen car ring in New Jersey. And I know for a fact, like I've been at his house and we've hung out and I've been around people, like he surrounds himself with street guys. Like he puts these guys on payroll. He got like real, you know, street people around him. So it's not like he's just oblivious to all this. It's not like, well, I don't know, I'm a suburban guy and I have no idea about all this. No, like he's an actual guy who understands these codes and understands the repercussions and has friends in prison. And I remember one of his friends got killed. His old manager, I think. It was like in a parking lot in Jersey. I forgot his name, but it was like a serious situation. Like this dude had like an Akon chain and everything else. I think it was over the chain possibly. But like he's seen the ramifications and lives destroyed over people snitching. I mean, Tekashi helped give out over 70 years, plus 2 life sentences that are pending. Think about that.
Yeah.
Think about if he did not get on that stand and cooperate. A lot of those guys would have probably had their time shaved by 75%. They had a guy that was participating in everything who was right there. You take that away, and the feds have somewhat of a weak case. So, I don't know. I mean, like I said, me and Akon probably, you know, will have a talk about this at some point. But at this point, when I saw the optics of it, it was kind of a disappointment.
Yeah, I wonder if it's to an extent like Akon is so real and the 6ix9ine thing is so self-evidently like fake and, you know, never should have been taken serious in the first place that to him it's so off the radar of him even thinking of it as a real situation or whatever. Like even Nicki, when I watched the Instagram Live with her defending it, she was very much saying, you know, this is music. This is the music business. Like, you know, she was like really drawing a line in the sand there. Like, I'm around some people who really care about street shit. This is not that. And in a way, then it starts to kind of make sense. Like, oh, he's somebody you can just go do music with. I still don't really like it. I still don't really respect it. But it's interesting to see how different people might compartmentalize this and put it into a box so that they don't have to feel bad about it.
Well, I mean, if you look at Nicki's history, I mean, just from like like let's just say dealing with people who are responsible for sexual abuse, from her brother to her husband to Tekashi. I don't think that she really paints a line of, you know, morals in terms of people that she associates with. You see what I'm saying? Like, And that's her line to paint. Like, if one of my family members was a child molester, that'd be it.
Oh yeah.
I can't support that person.
Right.
You know, cousin, brother, sister, whatever. If, like, you know, she wrote a letter on her brother's behalf,
Right.
asking the court, you know, for you know, leniency on him when he was convicted of just brutally molesting a little girl
Right.
for like years. I can't be cool with that.
I have somebody I'm close to who recently was talking about how growing up they had an uncle that was like the creepy uncle who
Yeah.
like their parents wouldn't let them be around this uncle, and everybody sort of thought that the uncle might be touching kids or something. And I'm like, you guys just let him be around. Like, if you really genuinely think that, like,
Nah.
if it's a joke or if it's sort of sarcastic or whatever, like, okay, fine. But if you really think that, you're just going to be nice to him to be polite and not be like, you're not invited to the barbecue, the actual like barbecue at your
Yeah,
house, not the
nah.
metaphysical barbecue.
Nah, you can't. You know, but people, you know, I think unfortunately what happens in certain households, especially when there's not a lot of money to go around, and you don't have money for childcare or have money for school or after school programs or whatever, you just have your relatives helping you out with taking care of the kids, and it's like, you know, these people really haven't vetted properly and aren't watched and monitored properly. You know, you'll see when you have kids, you know, you got kids on the way.
I know, it's a crazy
You know?
feeling.
And yeah, man, you'll see how protective you get when you have a baby, and like it's like, oh, like I can't just let my male cousin watch her, you know, for 12 hours or.
So
or
in your
whatever
head,
else.
like everybody is a suspect, sort of, like in a sense that you never would have really considered previously.
I think that, yeah, I think that when you look at children, like you just have to be. It pays to be overly paranoid. Point blank, period. Like, you know, I mean, look at the Tekashi situation. If you look at what he pled guilty to, was a pretty heinous act with like a 13-year-old girl. Like, she was actually having, I think, oral sex or vaginal sex, like on camera, while he was like cheering it on. Like, he went on academics and told a different story. But if you, for example, listen to like the Tekashi Complex podcast that they did on him, where they had the actual reporters and everything else like that, they're breaking down the whole thing. Like, he has a thing of recreating the story.
In the most sympathetic way
in the most
possible.
sympathetic way.
I think
he's like,
I've been-
oh, nothing happened to her. No, something happened to her.
I think I've been guilty of basically like reiterating his version of it, but then I've talked to other people
Did
who have
not
seen
happen.
the video, which I don't think is like easy to get your hands on because it's
Yeah.
basically child porn.
Yeah.
And they've basically made it sound like it actually is like a lot more disturbing.
No, it's very disturbing. It's very disturbing. And he pled guilty to it.
Right.
And, you know, if he didn't have a bunch of money at the time, I think he'd be in prison right now. Quite honestly. But, you know, you get the best lawyers and they fight and they get you, you know, a good deal. But, you know, he was over 18. She was like 13. And he was participating in this somewhat. She was like sitting on his lap and everything else like that. I'm cool on all that, man.
Right. Do you feel okay? So there's kind of that conversation that goes down in the sense of like, should media outlets and rap be posting this dude at all? Is there an extent to which even when people cover him in like a purely documentarian way, or where you may be like asking somebody about him or having somebody else give their thoughts on him, like where do you draw the line in terms of like just promoting somebody that you don't think is ultimately good for the culture versus documenting things that are happening with somebody who's like objectively one of the biggest stories in hip hop?
Well, look, I mean, we've covered Tekashi since, you know, the beginning of his career pretty much. And before he got locked up, we were covering him a lot. Like damn near everything he did, we would cover it. But after the snitching thing happened, he came home. I told my staff, like, let me cover the big stories, you know, like cover him having to get relocated because the little white girl next door.
Right.
You know,
Hilarious.
saw
That was a
him
great
on
moment.
video, you know.
I wonder what she's doing right now.
You know, cover that. But are we covering him going number one? No, I don't think so. Are we covering him beefing with whoever else he's beefing with right now? Nah, because it's repetitive. You could just do that so many times until people just get kind of tired of it. But listen, man, look, he got his own path. He set up his own way. He came home with a bunch of money. I mean, it's like T.K. Kirkland says, like a fairy tale. He snitches on everyone and comes home to millions of dollars. It's like a fairy tale. You know, who could have caused you? Who could call something like that? And he's going home rapping about shooting people
at the chicken spot. And his second Instagram live back, he basically focused it on accusing, you know, Meek Mill and Snoop Dogg of ratting. Or not Meek Mill so much. He was accusing like Snoop. But Desiree Perez, I believe it is, from Rock Nation. He's like trying to say basically that Meek is a snitch because Meek affiliates himself with this executive at Rock Nation. I mean, nobody covered the stuff that he was talking about there. It just seemed like
I've known about that though. I've known about that story. Yeah, I mean, it's actually. I mean, you could find articles on her. She cooperated, I guess, to get some drug dealers arrested or something like that.
Right.
And I mean, the Snoop story. If you look at the Reggie Wright Jr. Interview that we did a while back, he talks about the incident that led to the alleged police report that Snoop made. Now, whether that police report is 100% accurate, I'm not 100% sure. But there was an incident with some ex-death row people and Snoop, and there was a fight. And that actually happened. There's an LA Times article about that.
Right. It just feels like nobody really cares that much. And like if he was as big as he seems to be, then him saying those things about people who are so beloved in rap should make bigger reverberations. And it doesn't really feel like that's actually happening.
Well, you got to come with some proof also. I mean, anyone could accuse anyone of anything, you know, like me getting accused for the judge thanking me, and there's a picture of the judge. Like, I mean, yeah, that looks cool in a meme, but, you know, there's also memes about 5G causing coronavirus. Like, man. And people burn down, you know, like 5G towers because of that. So there is a certain degree of that, but it's not going to go all the way across the board until it's actually verified by a real source. Right.
This came out, I think, yesterday, is that Meek Mill asked or commented on Academics' Instagram saying, don't cover me anymore. It's very interesting because presumably there's a lot of rappers that like don't want to be covered by the outlets that cover them. And very rarely do they ask that question, and even more rarely do the person who covers them actually say, okay. How's that stand out to you? Like if Meek Mill said that to you, how would you feel about it?
What's his name said that to me? Kick Push. What's his name?
Lupe Fiasco.
Lupe Fiasco said, DJ Vlad, don't cover me anymore. And I'm like, okay.
Right.
I'm still going to cover you if there's something about you to cover. Right. I've had a few people telling me that, but it's like, I mean, unless there's a reason not to cover you, we're still running a business here.
Right.
We still have to report on the news. Like that's part of my business is VladTV.com, which is a news site. So him asking Academics not to cover him, I don't know. Maybe Academics will do it. Maybe he won't. I remember at one point, wasn't he complaining that Academics wasn't like supporting his album or something like that? So it's.
But I think at one point Academics stopped posting him in general because another member of the Dream Chasers basically threatened him, saying don't say whatever about Meek, and Academics didn't appreciate that. My attitude basically would be like, if you say don't cover me, you're basically asking me to only cover the serious news stuff, meaning like the stuff that we have to cover, which is basically the negativity. Because it's like, if your album comes out and we post about that, that's basically us doing promo on your behalf. If you put out a new music video and we post up a clip from it, that's us just showering attention upon whatever it is that you're doing. If you get into a fight at the mall, or if you end up fighting with your girl, or if you end up shooting a gun in the air or whatever, those are all things that it's almost like as a news outlet you have to cover because that's actual news. Covering albums and music, etc., is very, very optional in comparison.
What's up, y'all? It's Vlad from Vlad TV. Make sure you check out my full interview on No Jumper.